English for Child Development, Language Skills for Parents and Providers by Marianne Brems, Marsha J. Chan, and Julaine H. Rosner, published by Sunburst Media. English for Child Development is an integrated skills textbook for English language learners. It teaches English to adults preparing for the field of early childhood education. It focuses on the academic language for students of child development. It gives practical assignments for communicating orally and in writing as childcare providers, in-service teachers, and parents. It embraces the linguistic and cultural diversity of children and adults, and it includes games, songs, creative projects, and problem-solving tasks. English for Child Development follows English for Childcare in addressing the needs of parents and childcare providers who are learning English for the specific purpose of advancing in their field. Let's take a look at some chapter openers. Chapter 1. Gathering Information About Children. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions to give and receive basic information about children, to recognize, develop, and practice skills to complete an accurate and objective running record about a child, to recognize, develop, and practice skills to reflect about a child's interests and background, to develop language skills for introducing children. Chapter 2. Documenting Development. The chapter goals are to develop and provide vocabulary and expressions for documenting the development of children, describing what children are wearing, writing a running record to document behavior, and to recognize the domains of development. Chapter 3. Describing Children and Their Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions to describe children and their development, to identify origin and cultural or ethnic identity, to write an objective introduction and description of a child, and to write an anecdotal record and reflection. Chapter 4. Factors in Child Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice expressions to discuss information about an environment, to fill out a childcare environment rating sheet, to describe a childcare environment objectively, and to write an observation and reflection on a childcare environment. Chapter 5. Socio-Emotional Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions to give and receive information about a child's socio-emotional development, to learn vocabulary and strategies to talk about pro-social and antisocial behavior, and to make oral and written reports, observations, and reflections about socio-emotional skills. Chapter 6. Motor Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions, to discuss motor development, to converse with children about their actions using narration, to write an accurate and objective running record, and to write a reflection to express conclusions and make predictions. Chapter 7. Cognitive Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions to discuss cognitive development, to recognize different kinds of knowledge and cognitive development, to reflect on a child's cognitive development, and to understand child assessment guidelines about causation. Chapter 8. Language and Literacy Development. The chapter goals are to develop and practice vocabulary and expressions to discuss language and literacy development, to give responses that teach children language, to encourage language development and literacy through the use of language, and to assess a child's speech and language. Vocabulary is presented in English for Child Development in a number of ways. Some vocabulary words are illustrated and placed in the context of sentences. These examples describe the actions of young children, showing important motor skills that they usually gain in their first 2 years. For example, she's lying prone, she's lying on her stomach, she's lifting her head and shoulders, and so on. This is an example of phrases to describe children's physical appearance, specifically the body, the skin, the eyes, the face, and the hair. Many new words are glossed as footnotes at the bottom of the page, especially in the reading passages. Every chapter has a vocabulary highlight, which focuses on 1 or 2 words central to the theme of the chapter. It promotes deeper study of the spelling, pronunciation, definitions, collocations, and usage of these words in grammatical sentences and appropriate situations. Every chapter has a word forms section in the back of the book, which helps learners identify suffixes to recognize members of word families. Each chapter includes at least one reading passage targeted for intermediate to high intermediate English language learners that presents a topic relevant to the domains or stages of child development. The reading passages in this book include topics such as domains of child development, growth and development, factors in child development, socio-emotional development, motor development, cognitive development, and language and literacy development. English for Child Development introduces students to 3 excerpts from the Desired Results Developmental Profile, DRDP, a formative assessment instrument developed by the California Department of Education for young children and their families. Its purpose is to enhance instruction and program development. Each reading is followed by exercises that help explain the content and make it more accessible. For example, this activity focuses on the organization of the reading, calling attention to key points. Pre-reading questions introduce the topic of the reading, connecting it with concepts previously introduced, engaging learners' prior knowledge, and leading learners to make predictions that will enhance their understanding of the reading passage. Following every reading passage is a reading and vocabulary analysis section. Post-reading discussion questions help students master the content and connect concepts with practical child development experiences. There are ample opportunities for students to learn and practice aspects of English grammar, writing, and editing in the context of child development. Different facets of the English language are explained and exemplified in easy-to-read language focus boxes adjacent to the learning activities. These include grammar and syntax, vocabulary and expressions, and strategies and structures for specific language functions. Here is an example of a language focus box on real conditional sentences in present and past time. The language focus is followed by an activity on making sentences with the target structures. These exercises on active and passive voice, both the one on completing sentences with the proper verb forms and the one requiring students to find and correct errors, demonstrate that all grammar and language patterns are embedded in topics related to early childhood development. Writing assignments include instruction on how to read, understand, and approach a response to a writing prompt typically found in a child development course. As these examples show, students practice sentence completion, sentence combination, and sentence creation. They write paragraphs and dialogues. They respond to questions of fact and opinion. They fill out various forms to assess children and childcare environments. Most writing assignments are done individually, but others are done in groups, especially when the observation of children is an essential part. The appendix has a section on sentence structures and mechanics tailored to the audience of this book. It is intended to be used as a resource to provide supplementary material and act as a handy and brief reference. Guided listening activities provide learners with spoken and written input about child development topics. Here's an example of a listening close activity focusing on cognitive development, followed by a dictation activity. Activities focusing on aspects of pronunciation, stress, and connected speech help learners develop fluency and comfort, as well as increase their oral intelligibility through dialogue practice. Interaction among class members through dialogues and role-play activities builds skills and creates community. Students strengthen their use of English grammar, vocabulary, listening, and speaking while reflecting on real experiences and solving childcare dilemmas. Dictation synthesizes language and child development concepts, supports comprehension, word recognition, and spelling, and connects spoken and written language. Every chapter presents both teacher-led and student-to-student dictation. Songs generate fun and interest, contribute to children's skill development and confidence, harmonize with the theme of a chapter, and stimulate language learning. Throughout the text, students are provided opportunities to complete extension projects involving a multitude of skills. These include guiding children to write bilingual booklets, reading a particular type of children's book and writing an evaluation of it, and observing children and writing reports that comprise introductions, running records, and reflections. For more information about English for childcare and English for child development, language skills for parents and providers, contact Sunburst Media.